welcome everybody to another ASSR pay-per-view preview stream here on the ASSR Facebook community page and on YouTube. I am Scott McLeod hosting the show for today. But I like to think of our group as kind of like the Channel 4 news team from Anchorman. Unfortunately, Ross McLeod, our usual Ron Burgundy, is not here today. Neither is David Campbell, or as we call him, our captain of the group. So unfortunately, me, the Brian Santana of the group, has had to step in and take the reins as we look to the card for tonight's AEW pay-per-view, the first pay-per-view of 2021. And I'm joined today by our own Vic Tamlin, David Hockney, because people seem to like him as he's polite, rarely late, and enjoys a nice hat.
Yep. Always. Like I like the hat references from Anchorman. That seems to be your go-to for me, isn't it?
Kind of. It's one of the nicest ones I can do. But joining us, because there's quite a bit of Japanese wrestling, Japanese women's wrestling that is to talk about on this show, our very own Tits McGee has joined us for this particular stream. It's Grant McRobbie.
Go fuck yourself, San Diego.
I know, let's keep this classy. Keep it classy. Now, as I said, we're here to talk about AEW Revolution. There are 9 matches on this card, including the buy-in and also a bunch of surprises that are planned for the show. So there's plenty of us to delve into. So let's just delve right into it now, shall we? And we're going to start with the buy-in match, and which sees Thunder Rosa and Rio taking on the team of Rebel and Dr. Britt Baker, DAMD. Although going into this, there's been talk that Rebel is injured, and Britt Baker has apparently maintains the right to choose a new partner on the night if Rebel is deemed unfit to compete, which is a weird thing to throw in for a buy-in match. But I haven't really fallen this match. I was shocked that Britt Baker went out in the second round of the Women's Eliminator Tournament. I thought she was going to get it all the way, and we have made our jokes, Dave, about Britt Baker's as a second round pick in the draft. But as a match, how do you see this going? Because this is technically the continuation of this Thunder Rosa Britt Baker feud that's been going on for a little while.
Yeah, I think Thunder Rosa's been getting a lot of momentum, as well as obviously she's made it to the semi-finals. But what I like about this tag team is that Thunder Rosa actually defeated Rio to make it to the semi-finals. So I'm wondering what the dynamic is there. The partnership between Britt Baker and Rebel, I'm not really sure. I mean, if Rebel can't compete, I honestly can't think off the top of my head who's going to replace her if she needs to. But I could possibly see Thunder Rosa and Riho getting the win for this one. Largely because I think, Rosa, I think she's high on AEW's priority list in terms of the women's division, but I think she needs to sort of regain some momentum a bit, whereas Britt Baker, I think, wouldn't gain as much if she did pick up the win this time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's strange that this is kind of the return of Riho. She came back as part of the tournament, didn't get that far, and now she's here as part of this buy-in match. Can you see them really swapping out Rebel for anybody, or do you have really any thoughts about this match?
You kind of gave me a thought there when you mentioned that Rosa beat Rio to get to where she is. Using a kind of similar dynamic, but perhaps the other way around. Bring Nyla Rose in to go with Britt Baker. You've got 2 clear heels in that team then. I do think that it's going to be a win for Baker. She really, as we've said, she lost in the tournament. Big surprise, big shock, because everyone came into it thinking she was your clear-cut pick for the American side. So I think, her losing the tournament isn't a bad thing. They can still spin some momentum off this, hopefully put this feud to bed with Rosa and maybe set her up for the winner of the women's title match.
Yeah, I don't really want to spend too much time thinking about potential of switching out a Rebel for somebody else, because there's already enough potential surprise people to show up on the show. But I think if they do swap her out, it will be for someone who's already on the roster, like a Nyla Rose or say Penelope Ford, because she's not really got much to do other than come out with Miro and Kip Sabian later on. Or maybe they'll bring in one of the Japanese women that they use if they eliminate, if they brought any of them over other than the eventual winner of the tournament. More on that a little later on. But I'm going to go with Britt Baker and Rebel as well, or Britt Baker and whoever our partner is, because Britt Baker, I think, is going to be the person to challenge for the title next. And I think we've been saying it for a long time that she's a future champion. I think she would have won it by now had she not gotten injured early in 2020. So I'm going with Britt Baker to get the heel win on the buy-in. But we go into the main card, and it's actually already been announced that the main card will kick off with the AEW World Tag Team title match between the Young Bucks and MJF and Chris Jericho. A very interesting match here to kick us off. Maybe it leads to maybe something big is going to happen in this match today. We talked about this a lot on Saturday Night Live, but Grant, I brought up a possibility. I don't want to get your thoughts on it. I mentioned on Saturday Night Live, could this be the return of Sammy Guevara to help cost MJF and Jericho, because they've been really bigging up that they don't want Sammy Guevara's name mentioned because he walked out on the Inner Circle?
That would be absolutely brilliant. Although ideally, I would love it to just be a clean tag match, because the Bucks have been involved in some of AEW's best tag matches, and against the team of Jericho and MJF, I'm expecting big things. I've got a lot of hopes and expectations for this match.
I'm glad that this is going on before the big tag team battle royal that they've got later on, because if they put the battle royal on first and say Proud and Powerful won, I think a lot of people then assume MJF and Jericho were going to win later because some tension between the Inner Circle. And if MJF Jericho win, they still could do that later on, but I think it leaves the tag team battle royal a bit more open. But Dave, I mentioned the Sammy Guevara things because I think Guevara was meant to be away from TV a bit longer. He was meant to do some stuff with Impact and also all the news. I think we've reported on Central that the plans fell through for what he was originally meant to do, and so Guevara is free to be brought back to TV anytime. But I know you've got a bit of an investment with the draft, Young Bucks beat your team, but just as a match, how do you see this going?
I think it might actually surprise a lot of people, because obviously, we're accustomed to seeing the Young Bucks versus Omega and Hangman, which got Match of the Year last year. We've seen Bucks versus FTR. I think this would be quite interesting because, Jericho and MJF are a fairly new tag team. They've not been a team that have competed together for a significant amount of time. And obviously, Omega and Hangman had that connection with the Elite and stuff. So that sort of helped with the chemistry. I think this will be above what people are expecting it to be. It will be better than what people would think. So you think, these two guys, Jericho and MJF, they're just a fairly new team. I wouldn't expect them to be on par with FTR, but they're obviously Jericho's a very experienced contender, and MJF's got that really hungry drive about him, and he knows how to work a match. So, yeah, like I said, I think it'll exceed expectations. That's all I'll say on that one.
Yeah, Jericho mentioned in that big meeting that they had with the Inner Circle on the Go Home Dynamite about his history as a tag team wrestler, and if he's won tag titles with The Rock, Big Show, and people didn't mention Christian, he's won tag team titles with in the past, Edge, before Edge got injured and had to get from that team with the Big Show. So he has a past as a tag team wrestler, and I think we've all been waiting for MJF to get some gold in AEW for a little while. Also, I think it's interesting about this match is that it's one of the first times that Young Bucks have had a clear face heel dynamic, because the whole idea of we didn't know if they were turning heel and joining Kenny, and then the thing with FTR was the issue was they were going in heel versus heel, whereas they had MJF and Jericho attack the Young Bucks' dad. So now the Bucks actually feel like baby faces going into this for the first time now, which has been hard for me to see them as baby faces, because part of their entrance is them posing and a bunch of money with their faces on it, bursting out of the Titantron. So, that's not exactly the attitude usually of a babyface tag team, is it?
No, not at all. I think it's quite interesting because you never know, they could still be aligned with Kenny, but in this sort of particular angle, they've sort of created that face heel dynamic where, one team does something personal to the other team, and then you sympathize with one team, and that's how you treat them as the faces. But that's not to say, it's not going to change their relationship with Kenny Omega and stuff. I reckon they could easily switch back to being a sort of heelish tag team, just as long as they ascertain dominance.
Mm-hmm. That's one of the matches I'm really most convinced on, because I think it'd be interesting to continue this relationship with MJF and Jericho, keep that going and add some gold to it to make it more interesting. Whereas the Bucks, I think, actually have a storyline. I think they're going to eventually start coming to blows with the Good Brothers on an AEW show, but I don't think they really necessarily need to be the champions for that to happen, because you can either do it for the Impact tag titles or just don't do it for any tag titles, just have it be a grid feud. So,
well, if you're not going to do it for titles, why not just do it, champions versus champions? That adds a bit more of a prestige to this sort of company warfare. Whereas if the Inner Circle end up losing, they could still have that sort of civil war in amongst them, between Proud and Powerful, and then there's the outside factor of Sammy Guevara. That's sort of two storylines writing itself.
It's Proud and Powerful had that tag title show a couple of weeks ago against the Bucks, and there were all sorts of rumors that the Bucks were going to lose to Proud and Powerful, and then it was going to have this match at Revolution. So I think there is an idea in place for a Proud and Powerful versus MJF and Jericho very soon. So for reasons like that, I'm just going to take MJF and Jericho only slightly because I was really going back and forth. So MJF and Jericho are my official pick. Grant, who are you going with?
I'm going with MJF and Jericho. I think the Bucks losing the belts could actually be a great trigger for Omega to kind of turn on them even further, to be like, well, I've still got gold. Yous don't. Yous are useless. I'm carrying yous.
Very, very interesting. And he's aligned with the Good Brothers who still have gold for now. David?
Yeah, I'm gonna differ from the pack here. Invested in the Young Bucks as part of our draft, and I think just for the reasons I gave earlier about two potential storylines coming out of this, I'm gonna go with the Bucks to retain.
I think it's best that we talk about that tag team battle royal because it kind of ties in here because I think about whoever comes out of this. So you guys then look at the battle and think, who do we most likely see coming out of this? What's the best matchup to come out of this? And my word, the amount of teams in this is definitely the most, I think, stacked AEW pay-per-view in terms of how many actual people they've got on the card. Because in this tag team battle royal, there are 15 teams announced here. Confirmed here. There is Bear Country, Dark Order, represented by Alex Reynolds and John Silver. Then another Dark Order team, Evil and Racing, Santana and Ortiz, Butcher and the Blade, Private Party, Top Flight, Packard Ray Phoenix, Jeff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr., Matt and Mike Seidel, SCU, Natural Nightmares, Chaos Project, the Gun Club, Mystery Team still to be announced, and a Partridge and a Bloody Pear Tree. Good lord, there's that many teams. And so there are going to be 30 people when that other team, that TBA, is announced. Then that's going to be 30 men and maybe have a 15. That's almost a whole Royal Rumble worth of competitors in this tag team battle royal alone. I'm assuming, given it's the Casino tag team battle royal, the whole thing that number 21, the joke, that's who that last team's going to be. And they do like to keep us guessing who that's going to be. I think it's a decent guess to say that last team might be the Good Brothers.
Oh, can you imagine? See, if the Good Brothers end up winning that sets up a Bucks feud right on its own.
Mm-hmm. Because I was talking to a friend of mine about this, and he talked about how he had that segment, the big brawl with the Bucks in Inner Circle, where the Good Brothers suddenly came out and helped them. They helped them put Proud and Powerful through tables. And my friend was saying that he thought that maybe this is a plan by the Good Brothers that they're trying to both weaken the Bucks going in their tag team match, but also weaken Proud and Powerful, as that means that that's at least one team when they enter the tag team battle royal that they can easily eliminate because they've just been put through tables on the go home Dynamite. Grant, there's a lot also to digest with all those teams. Which teams do you like the look of, and what do you think of that potential last team being the Good Brothers?
For the potential last team, the Good Brothers, I think it's a great idea. I'm going to throw another potential surprise one because of their involvement with Impact at the moment in the Forbidden Door. Scrap that. No, they're in Japan right now. It's not going to work. I was going to say Finches, but I keep forgetting that the Impact stuff's taped well in advance. But yeah, Good Brothers coming in makes perfect storyline sense, especially if the Bucks were to retain the titles beforehand. Other than that, I love the idea of Dark Order getting a big win here, whether it's a team of Evil Uno and Grayson or Reynolds and Silver. Either one of those two teams to me is just screams. But is anyone forgetting the whole SCU thing about Kazarian and Daniels? If they fail, they're over.
Oof. Yeah, I think they try and cover themselves and say, "Oh, it was last time they lose. Next time they lose a straight up tag team match." So I think if they lose here, they'll be safe. But I think if they did this, that would be a great story for them to win this battle royal. It's just that I don't think it's been that big a part of TV recently that I think people are already starting to forget about that storyline, which is a shame because that's a great storyline to have for the tag team, especially with the guys who have the history that Daniels and Kazarian have. Outside of the potential storylines with surprise of the Good Brothers joining the battle royal and stuff with the Young Bucks, a team I really jumps out to me that I'd actually like to see win, regardless of who comes out with the tag team titles, is Pac and Phoenix together. Because I actually thought they'd be in the battle royal was because I've seen the go home Dynamite, but I hadn't seen the couple of weeks before it. So I assumed that Pentagon was still injured, and that's why these two together. I didn't realize he was in the ladder match because it always felt like that in this trio it was going to be Pat going for singles gold and the Future Brothers as a tag team. But now they're trying something different where Pentagon's the singles guy, seemingly, and Pac and Phoenix are going for gold. And no, that's a very unique team. I think you got seeing got that big like squash victory on Dynamite. I actually think these guys are going in as a favourite. Dave, anybody else that stands out to you?
A couple of teams really that I think are due their sort of big win and hence a title match. Private Party, they've been with AEW since day one, and they always seem to be on the cusp of winning the tag titles, but they never seem to have had the trigger pulled on them. They have a victory over the Bucks as well, so this could be a case of retribution for them. Get back what they feel they're earned. And the other team that stood out to me was Jurassic Express. Again, a team that's sort of been there or thereabouts, but has never had that big break. I don't think either of them are going to win, though. I actually think, now that you've mentioned that there's potential for the Good Brothers to be the mystery team, I'm now convinced that they're probably going to win it.
So actually, going through, I don't think I've read out Jurassic Express being in this group or FTR, actually, now I think about it. And I think that actually goes to show just how stacked the AEW tag team division actually is. That they've got this many teams. I think they've almost got too many teams that they know what to do with.
Yeah, basically this is the equivalent of NXT's. This is like NXT's women's division. It's like, it's so stacked at the minute. Like, you almost don't know what to do with all of them, but you've got no shortage of angles, challengers for titles, and they're basically spoiled with how much they've got at the minute.
Yeah, it's weird to see Jurassic Express not being involved. I think FTR, you can kind of use that later in the following weeks where they're annoyed that they weren't involved, and then they can go after one of the lower card teams like Garrison and Pillman Jr. and say why the hell are you guys involved? But we're former tag team champions, and you can use that to help further a couple of other teams. But I'm hard. I think struggling for official prediction. If the Good Brothers show up, I'm going with them as to actually win it. But because Don Callis will maybe try and get involved as well to help them. But if they don't get involved, then I'm going to say Proud and Powerful. Because I think it's about time they got a proper go at the tag team titles.
See, I would have gone with Proud and Powerful first, but then I remembered they actually had a title match not that long ago. So I'm wondering, I mean, it could be possible that, they might get another shot, maybe, but I think that's the sort of put a seed of doubt in that maybe if Jericho and MJF are winning first. But I don't think, because of that, I'm going to go with the mystery team and say that the Good Brothers are winning.
Yeah.
I'm going to go a slightly different pick from everyone else because I feel like saying the Good Brothers, if it is them, don't know if it is, very good possibility. I'm going to play it a bit more safe, and I'm going to go with the team of Pac and Phoenix to win.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was tempted to go with them as well. Between them, Proud and Powerful, if the Good Brothers don't show up, because I don't want to overly think it's going to be them and end up disappointing myself with whoever it ends up being, because they always do tend to surprise us with these final entrants in these battle royals. But I would like to see them win this, because Death Triangle's been really hard with injuries and with the pandemic and everything. So getting them to actually all be challenging for gold would actually really help give some credibility to them as a faction. Looking at a couple of other teams, you mentioned Private Party, Dave. I think them and Dark Order aren't going to win here, because I think they'll get involved later on in the night if it happens after this in a different match where you have the big money match of Matt Hardy, who's also the manager of Private Party, taking on Hangman Adam Page, who's kind of associated with the Dark Order. He was teaming with John Silver on Dynamite this week, and you had Matt trying to take out the members of the Dark Order to get to Hangman Page. He paid off Jack Evans to cost 10 a spot in the ladder match. So, and the most unique stipulation I think of the night, or that I've seen in a while, is the winner receives the loser's first quarter earnings for 2021, which I think is meant to tie into the fact that Matt, being this kind of skeezy promoter kind of thing he's going, where he's taking 30% of Private Party's earnings, which I think is meant to tie in maybe a dig at WWE and the whole third party thing. And also he said that when the Private Party go to Impact, guys, this is a third party deal, so I actually get 50% of your earnings. And so it's a weird way to set up a match, because Matt wanted Hangman to join him. Hangman wants to go on his own, and he also refused the Dark Order. I actually would like to see Hangman win here, and maybe finally he has this moment where he joins the Dark Order. Because I think they can do a lot with that. Have a moment where he and John Silver just run at each other across the ring and embrace each other, and he finally joins the Dark Order. But also with Matt. Matt used to do these things as Big Money Matt, where he'd do these things that you don't know how hard it is to be Matt Hardy, where he'd basically be like this spoiled rich guy who moans about these trivial things that really aren't much an issue for a regular person. Like, God, my maid can only come twice a week. You don't know how hard it is to be me. Like, I have to get up at 10:30 every morning to go downstairs to my personal gym and shit like that. So, like, the idea that him losing to uh, Hangman, and like even though he loses his first quarter earnings, he's still loaded, but he comes out and makes out like he's poor and he's just like complaining about it. Like, you guys don't know how hard it is. I lost all this money to Hangman Adam Page. I think Matt could actually do something worthwhile with that, because let's be honest, Dave, like Matt Hardy's AEW career so far has been, let's say, up and down, for lack of a better term.
Okay, it's hard to say what's going on with Matt Hardy at the minute, given that his feud with Sammy Guevara kind of went a bit pear-shaped, especially at All Out. But what I like about this feud is the stipulation involved, the fact that it's not about a championship or a grudge match. This is about money, and it's not too often you see a feud revolving around money and earnings. So I think it's almost like a breath of fresh air. And when you put into perspective first quarter earnings for a wrestler. Obviously, wrestler salary varies and stuff, but if it was like our sort of normal salary, like a first quarter earnings is like maybe about, give or take 10 grand. But from a wrestler's perspective, you're talking, almost up to maybe 100 grand or so, which is quite a lot for a full quarter.
I think they also said in AEW that would include merch and things like that as well, when in terms of like the earnings. But the thing I said about Hangman winning is that I think you can get a lot of good out of like Matt Hardy complaining about claiming that he's like skint, even though we all know he's still really well off despite losing these earnings. But if Hangman loses, I don't really see what you do with that, because then he goes from like having that great match with Kenny at Full Gear to losing to Matt Hardy. And nothing really wrong with losing to Matt Hardy, but like, what way does it benefit Hangman Page to lose his first quarter earnings in a storyline?
It's such a weird stipulation and storyline, but yeah, it's something different. I can't remember the last. I know there has been stuff involving money and feuds before, but it's just such a different one. I quite enjoy it. I definitely think the win has to go for Hangman. He has to join the Dark Order. They've been given blue balls for this for ages. Give me what I want.
And usually when it comes to this sort of stipulation, if it's about money and you've got a wrestler whose nickname is Big Money, it sort of it makes you think, that person's probably going to end up losing. Like, look at NXT UK. Xia Brookside beats Nina Samuels after berating her for just being a bag carrier and stuff, and now Nina Samuels is Xia's assistant. Oh, she's her assistant for a month now. But yeah, I think this will be a turnaround here. Big Money Matt's going to have to pay out to Hangman, and he'll just get. What are the chances he's going to spend it all on beer?
Quite a lot. They're going to have him like starting this big, massive bar tab that even Matt's earnings probably can't cover. Or spend all his money on a new horse from to ride into Daly's place on. Honestly, Dave, when you said about NXT, I thought you were going to mention like Cameron Grimes' new gimmick with this whole like redneck $1 billion man thing that he's got going on. But
I mean that too, but it's still in early doors, I think, at this stage to really understand. He's just he's still the same guy. He's just got a ton of money now.
A lot of money. I think it makes sense for Hangman to win here, and Matt, I actually didn't realize he's actually undefeated on pay-per-view in AEW, where we forget he beat Sammy Guevara twice and he was involved in the winning side of Stadium Stampede. So he's gonna probably lose here, and like I said, it'll be fun. They can get some comedic stuff out of this, and it is a new way of making a storyline. Being all sitting around the money. So I'm going with Hangman Adam Page. You guys the same?
Aye, Hangman.
100%.
Right. Moving on to one of the other undercard matches. I don't really want to spend a lot of time on this. It's Miro and Kip Sabian taking on Orange Cassidy and Chuck Taylor. Also, Trent, the third member of the Best Friends, is still out injured. He will be indefinitely. This all centered around the fact that Miro beat Chuck in a match, became his butler for a month, if even that, And because it's weird, he said like you can be my butler up until the wedding, which was like 3 weeks later. Like I don't know why he didn't like make it longer if he really wanted to humiliate him. And then literally, and then like said, oh, you can be a butler to the wedding. So unsurprisingly, Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy caused a muck at the wedding, and now they've got this tag team match. But Miro has promised on Dynamite that it's not going to be the fun and games Miro that you've seen so far. So I'm hoping that means we're getting more Grant of a hint to the Bulgarian brute that we all remember in WWE, and we can all wanted to see him be when he came into AEW.
He's shown his little flashes of it, but he's been kind of mostly having a bit of fun. I mean, the main thing is he does seem to be enjoying himself. So whatever way he goes about it, I'm just happy for more Miro on the telly because I do enjoy it. I know a lot of people aren't sold on this gimmick with him right now, but I've been enjoying it. He's goofy, he's having a bit of fun, but he can step up for the big matches. We know he can, and I think this match could actually be a bit of a show stealer. There's potential there because him and Sabian is fantastic as well. Underrated.
Yeah, I think he can do like the more the comedic side, and I think people forget that. I think he was trying to show his more versatility, but the fact that the storyline Dave with best friends actually gone on for quite a while, and it only started because he bought some arcade machine for Kip and Penelope, and best friends accidentally destroyed it, and that was really the basis for the start of the feud. I don't think it's really what people were expecting.
The wedding scene, I honestly thought it was a bit cringy in some aspects, but I think Miro is getting better booked way more than he was in WWE because obviously his last storyline was this whole cock angle with Bobby Lashley, and look where Lashley is now, on top of the world as WWE champion. So it's and then Miro just, I mean, he's not quite to that level yet, but he's got the potential to be so much more in AEW in particular. I'm not entirely sure how if this is the best booking for Orange Cassidy, though, given that he's been on the cusp of winning the TNT title a couple of times. But I mean, I think the best friends personally deserve better, you know, but obviously Trent's injuries throwing a bit of a wrench in the works with there, and you can't exactly have Orange Cassidy go off on his own because that leaves Chuck Taylor hanging. To be honest, I think this is the match I'm least looking forward to. I just haven't had much enough reason to sort of be invested in it, but I really hope, you know, Miro and Orange Cassidy following this feud, you know, they get some proper exposure.
Yeah, I think things will need to wait till after Revolution to get better for Miro because I do think, given the storyline and the fact that they were trying to humiliate Chuck Taylor, that Chuck Taylor and Orange Cassidy kind of have to win now. And I don't mind them too as a team, you know, it's a unique format, you know, because Trent's Chuck's usual partner, but then having a team with Orange Cassidy or as well as the whole thing with the hands in the pockets and all that. I think they actually could do some good stuff together, but I'm hoping they can. I think that Miro and that will lose, but then Miro will use that as motivation going forward and show more of an intense side going forward. But I do agree this is the match I'm least looking forward to. Grant, which way are you going with who's going to win?
I think the win's going to go to Miro and Sabian. That's where I'm siding.
Okay, so Grant differs from us. But we go over to another match that teases.
Wait, no. I'm going with Miro and Sabian as well.
I thought you said Beth. Right? Okay, I'm the one deviating from everybody else.
No, I didn't give my prediction. I just said Miro and Sabian.
All right, well, there you go. I thought you had given that. So there you go. Dave and Grant are both going for Miro and Sabian. I've gone for best friends. So we'll move on to the Faces of the Revolution ladder match. Winner gets a future shot at the TNT Championship. We have Cody versus Scorpio Sky versus Penta versus Lance Archer versus Max Caster of the Acclaimed, and a six-man soon to be announced one. The only people who apparently knows about this, who the sixth man is Tony Khan himself. So it'll be quite interesting to see who that is. I've heard all sorts of rumors. I've heard people Mike Bailey. I've heard some people say Ethan Page, who recently left Impact Wrestling. You know, part of me thinks they should just make it somebody within the company because they've still got quite a few guys that could still be. You know, got Eddie Kingston, you got Colt Cabana, Sonny Kiss, Joey Janela around the company. But you know, I think if they just put somebody who's already on the roster, people will like see that as a disappointment, which would be a shame. But I'm quite interested to see who it could be. You know, like a ladder match. But Dave, does it seem like the card's a bit overstacked? You've got a battle royal, you've got a death match later in the night, a street fight, and now you've got a ladder match.
Not at all. I mean, look at the 2018 Greatest Royal Rumble show, a 50-man Royal Rumble. There was a ladder match, a cage match, a casket match. Like, you can have stacked cards that sometimes work. And I think in this instance, you know, the storyline sort of builds around it. And ladder matches aren't as uncommon these days, like, because it's one you can sort of squeeze into the card, and everybody's going to have eyes on it because it is one of the most exciting stipulations that you can get. But no, listen, a stacked card like that, it's not something that the wrestling industry has done in the past, because in some instances it can work. Same like Unforgiven 2006. There was a Hell in a Cell match and a TLC match, both happened there.
Yeah, the reason I'm asking is because I think the issue that I've had with Full Gear and All Out the last couple of reviews is that, especially if you're watching them live in the UK, they can really do throw a lot on the card, which is good for a fan perspective. If you're watching in the UK, that does mean the cards go well into the early hours if you're watching it live, so it can be difficult to sit through. I'm going to get thoughts on who the sixth guy might be. Matt, Grant, who do you think it might be?
I've been trying to think this one, and it's been absolutely driving me mental trying to think it through, because there's just so many surprises being put on this. To be honest, I would love it to be Eddie Kingston, but if we're going out with the company, then I definitely think Ethan Page is a shout for it. As long as if he comes in as Karate Man, I will piss myself laughing. That would just break me. But it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, the reason I said it's probably someone from outside that I said about how Tony Khan saying, I'm one of the only people who knows about it. So I don't think they'd have that level of secrecy if it was already somebody under contract. So it's got to be somebody like you had Brian Cage debut last time they did a big ladder match like this back at Double or Nothing. So I think him and people like Bailey, who a lot of people said should be signed somewhere for a while, and he's had visa issues. Hopefully now he could be a good shout. What's good about this is that it's got a good mix of people involved in it. You got Lance Archer, like the powerhouse, will probably throw everybody around. You got Scorpio Sky and Penta, the more high flyers. You got Matt Scattercad, the more the unknown, and then you got the first ever TNT champion in it, being Cody. So it's a very interesting mix. What's funny is that Matt Scatter actually played one of Bobby Lashley's sisters in that god awful segment a few years ago. And when he qualified this week for the ladder match, somebody put, "What a good week it's been for Bobby Lashley and his sister." But I actually think you had Scorpio Sky on Dynamite on commentary during Matt Scatter's qualified match. He was going on about how, why is the camera not on me and stuff, but he's bigging himself up. So I think Scorpio Sky is actually going to come out of this with a win, even if they do have the surprise, because I don't think the surprise always has to win, as long as they make them look good in defeat. Because they didn't have to have a Brian Cage one, but they did. But even if they didn't, they had that spot where everybody would try to pile stuff on top of them to keep them down. So I'm going with Scorpio Sky as my official prediction. Dave, who are you leading with?
See, this is a difficult one to predict because, Grant obviously mentioned Ethan Page from Impact, and AEW is accustomed, to bringing out big surprises and stuff. But I have a couple of theories about the mystery participant first. Is that what if Tony Khan has this scheduled pick ready to go, and then someone like Eddie Kingston comes in, attacks the backstage, and ends up taking their place? That would be quite a clever book, and then you have Eddie Kingston and Lance Archer in the same match. So, but you never know. If I'm going completely left field, I could just say Shaq might show up and appear in the ladder match. You may not even need one; he just reaches up and grabs it. But for my official prediction, I don't know why, but I'm actually going to go with Lance Archer on this one.
Interesting. It wasn't a match to determine the first ever champion. Obviously, it wasn't successful. And I do think you're kind of onto something with Shaq, because I've seen some people say about Shaq showing up, maybe not even as a participant, but just to cost Cody the match somehow.
Maybe.
But after a little table spot from Dynamite, Grant, your official prediction?
Official prediction for me would be, I just thought of something that further surprise. What if it turns out to be Paul White? Since he is signed.
Oh, that would be interesting, definitely. I mean, just for the face-off between him and Lance Archer, that'd be kind of worth it.
Wait, what this mystery signing is going to be the sixth person?
I don't know.
I doubt they'd put the mystery. I doubt they'd put the mystery signing in. They're making such a big deal just of the signing, so you'd be putting them lofty expectations onto the match as well. I just don't see that happening. But big Paul White showing up, not necessarily getting the win. I'm backing Pentagon for the win, because I just think that'd be outstanding. The thought of him vs Darby Allin excites me greatly.
Yeah, definitely. But since we mentioned that signing that Paul White is teased, I know it'd be fun to think that he'd have him immediately turn heel and say the signing is me, I'm Hall of Fame worthy and everything. But Tony kind of said that we're not going for bait and switch here. This is legit. We have to sign something big. Big Joe is legit one of the only people who knows about it, which is why he gets to be involved in it. I'll run you through some of the names that have been talked about. Also, Kurt Angle posted that video.
Yes, Jonathan, there we go.
It's also his prediction. Well, it's bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. But some people have said about Kurt Angle because he tweeted that video as well, like him putting his gear on. But I think if it was being kept so under wraps, and it was Angle, why would Angle risk people immediately thinking it was him by posting a video like that? Brock Lesnar. Some people said I would actually like it to be him a little bit. Some people have said Batista, Christian. They said it was somebody who's been one of Tony Khan's all-time favorites. And apparently, two of his all-time favorites are Bret Hart and Stone Cold Steve Austin. So just the idea of Paul White being in the ring and thrown to who it is, and just hearing the glass shatter, and the idea of Austin coming out into AEW. Some people said John Cena. I think you're dreaming there. That's not happening. Is there any names I'm listing off here that stand out to you, or is there anybody who you've heard rumored or have a suspicion about that I'm not mentioning?
Well, firstly, Batista's retired, so I don't think it's going to be him. The only indication I've had it could be is that Kurt Angle obviously posted the video out, but we've said before we came on air that I personally think that's a red herring. It has to be somebody that I think maybe he's just trolling the fans a bit. But I honestly couldn't tell you who it could be.
I mean, he said it's not who you think it is, which I think means it's not CM Punk.
It's Terry Funk.
Punk himself was tweeting out for fans to tweet hashtag #AskPunk, and he's doing a Twitter Q&A, and then he added that same tweet, and it's not me, saying that it wasn't him. And he also said that AEW should focus on their own people, which I think is a smart thing. But Grant, who do you think it's going to be? I think it's not going to stop people from suspecting CM Punk.
CM Punk is, based on the way it's described and bigged up, is logical. Batista is still logical. He can say he's retired, but how many fucking times did Terry Funk retire?
Mm-hmm. I think he even tweeted out something about, we need a new word rather than retirement, because retirement doesn't mean what it used to anymore. So maybe he was talking about himself, maybe he's talking about someone else. Who knows? But so it could be him.
All right.
It's David Campbell. I bet you. The goat's having us on, making us think that he's at home hungover. It's actually him. He's going to appear as Syndrome from The Incredibles. Boom.
I mean, I think there's an obvious answer right under our noses. It's clearly going to be Paul White's identical twin, Captain Insano, who shows no mercy. That is going to be revealed as the new thing. I'd love it to be that. But I think it depends, who you think, depending on who they think they could add value, because they don't necessarily have to come in and be a full-time roster member. They can be a commentator or a manager as well. Christian, like I said, I think if they're going to have someone who's going to come in and wrestle, Christian seems more likely to be a wrestler, given that he is cleared, but also given his Rumble appearance and he's connecting to Edge, WWE's going to want to quickly sign him up rather than have him go anywhere. So, is there anybody else, Dave? You seem like you're thinking something.
No, I really haven't got any other indications. But I think if we're going to go really, really out there, can you imagine if me and Mark Calloway shows up?
I think that's somehow even more improbable than bloody John Cena showing up. I mean,
hey, listen, it's a very out there pick. That's why I'm throwing it out there.
The Undertaker can't even do a bloody inside the rope show without WWE getting involved. Or that time he went to try to go to Starcast, so there's no way they'd actually let him sign a contract with somewhere else. So I think that's definitely unlikely.
Dr. Isaac Yankem.
If Kane showed up, mate, it'd be the greatest night of my life. Greatest night of my life. I take back everything I said about it. Part of me wants, one reason I said about Brock Lesnar, I just want to see the hardcore AEW fans just tearing Twitter apart at the idea of Brock Lesnar coming in. I want Brock Lesnar to come in and just throw around Darby Allin, throw Marco Stunt into the fucking third tier of bloody Bailey's place, and have the crowd surf him all the way back down, like bloody Bam Bam Bigelow and Spike Dudley. Like, and also just the idea of Brock showing up, because I think Brock does whatever the hell he wants.
Yeah, he does.
It's funny to say Brock will do it.
There's just a lot of names like going around who it could be, and they said also Hall of Fame worthy. So like, there's a lot of Hall of Famers that it does kind of rule out. And I think part of the reason people said about Batista is because he was maybe in the Hall of Fame. He should be in the Hall of Fame by now, but last year's Hall of Fame ceremony was cancelled because of the pandemic and everything. So who knows, really? I think it's really hard to give an official prediction right now, but a lot of people are going to hype up in their head, and there's a chance they might be disappointed if it's not the person they exactly thought it was going to be. But we'll move on to, speaking of Sting, I mentioned his first match since 2015, teaming up with Darby Allin, TNT champion, and potentially his legit son. We need that paternity test right now. Against Team Taz, Brian Cage, and Ricky Starks. A lot of us assumed, Grant, this was going to be more of a cinematic match. They haven't said anything. They haven't given any hints towards it. Would you prefer it to be a cinematic match, or do you think they're just going to go with the straight up like street fight?
Just give me the straight up street fight. I know a lot of people are concerned about Sting taking bumps and stuff like that because of his age, because of what happened to him years ago. But Daniel Bryan came back from retirement. Edge came back from retirement. So there is nothing to say that I don't. They wouldn't let him take bumps if he wasn't cleared. They would not take that risk because the PR disaster that would be for them would be catastrophic. It will be probably Alan doing the heavy lifting, but play to that strength. Let Sting get a few licks in, then he gets put out for a little while by the powerhouse that is Brian Cage. They're going to double team Alan. Work the stipulation. This is one of those times that we've seen it, like when Kurt Angle came back with the Shield and looked like they had borrowed their granddad because Roman wasn't available or whatever it was. Just, I'm happy to be here.
I want to see them do an old school, I think, because you had Darby Allin doing on the zip line, kind of similar to when Sting used to kind of descend from the rafters back in WCW. I want them both to do that, be on like different sides of the ring, sides of daily space on zip wires, just zip in together as part of their entrance, if they can somehow do that. But given it's a street fight, you can have Luke Hobbs or Powerhouse Hobbs, whatever the hell you call him, and Taz's son Hook getting involved. I hope Taz takes a bump or something like that, or at least gets punched in the face by Sting, because I'm just annoyed by Taz this season, I think, because this feud's been going on for so long, and I think it makes sense with the definitive event to have Sting and Darby win. I think you can have Sting maybe get taken out at the start of the match, because he took that powerbomb from Brian Cage, which apparently took a lot out of him just taking that one bump. So you got to think they're going to have Darby being a sympathetic babyface that he can be, and taking all the punishment, and eventually build and build and build, and then he makes the hot tag, in comes Sting, and he does these splashes, and the few moves that you can still kind of do, Dave. But I think given how much they've hyped up Sting since he's came to AEW, and the fact that he's not wrestled since 2015, I think it's the most obvious match to predict, I think, of the entire card.
I think so. Sting's booking's been very tricky as of late, because obviously, yes, he can take a bump, but that's not to say he can take many bumps. Because I think Grant might have been onto something there, where I think it's going to be Darby that's going to be working most of the match on his side. I think he could put up with Cage and Starks for most of the match. I even suspected, maybe before it started, Sting could be sort of kayfabe taken out backstage, and then he shows up later towards the end with the baseball bat and just comes out swinging. And I think that's what will turn the tide in favor of Darby and Sting. So yeah, I'm going to go with Sting and Darby to win this one.
Yeah, I think, like I said, it's most obvious. I don't know if we need to spend that much time on it, because we have waited quite a while. We've got two big title matches to talk about still. So yeah, I do think Sting and Darby are going to go over. I do hope that Sting gives Darby his very own baseball bat, a baseball bat handed down from generations, from father to son. I'm telling you, until they do a storyline where they prove he's not Sting's son, I'm going to keep mentioning it. He's definitely Sting's son. But we move on to the AEW Women's World Title match. We have Ryu Mizunami taking on Hikaru Shida. Ryu won the Women's Eliminator tournament. We had the US bracket and the Japanese bracket. We had the Japan bracket all like on YouTube. You won that. Came to the US to fight Nyla Rose and won. And now he's had this match. Apparently, she has some history teaming with Hikaru Shida in the past, and I'm optimistic as to how this match is going to go. And like I said, we have won a while, so let's try not to delve too much into obviously our obvious criticisms of the EW Women's Division because we've done whole shows around that. But God, what were your thoughts on the whole like women's eliminator tournament, like how it went, and what do you think of Ryu as the next challenger to Shida?
I think they've done a fantastic job with it. I felt the tournament was pretty well conceived. Surprise results, we talked about it earlier. We thought Britt Baker would have been the clear winner. I was worried they were going to go and play it too safe and go with Nyla Rose getting the win and her being in the final and getting the win and all that sort of stuff. But no, we're getting a nice Joshi match, and it is one that I am absolutely buzzing for because Mizunami is fantastic. For people that hadn't seen her before, her performance in the tournament was outstanding. Would I have loved to have seen Maki Ito being the one doing it, coming out in pay-per-view, giving everyone the old middle finger, that whole sort of stuff? That would have been absolutely priceless. But, Mizunami, Shida, that should be a hard-hitting, like, for people that are still on the undecided as to what they think of Joshi wrestling, this, I think, could really change minds.
Aye, me and John were talking about this on this week's episode of Central, and he was adamant that Nyla Rose was going to win because AEW was going to play it safe. But I think both of us were wrong on that aspect. I was sort of convinced Nyla was going to win as well. But I mean, I don't know anything about Ryu Mizunami, and I think this will be quite interesting to watch. Because given AEW's expansion with the Japanese roster, and they sort of aired both sides of the bracket in conjunction with each other. This will be interesting, given that Mizunami is a bit more of an unknown entity in AEW. But despite that, I think Hikaru Shida's retaining this one.
Yeah, I mean, I did have a few criticisms about the tournament, and that I felt it was kind of rushed. I mean, I thought some of the YouTube matches could have been really worked into episodes of Dark, rather than being like separate. And they could do more like the interviews that they like to do over the Road 2 shows to kind of get to know some of the newer people, especially on the Japan side. But I did enjoy the Ryu versus Nyla Rose match. It kind of put my mind at ease about the possibility of the match at Revolution, because going into it when I saw that was the final, I thought so you're telling me it's going to be somebody we've seen Shida fight twice before on pay-per-view, or somebody we've not really seen before, especially not on US TV. But then Ryu had the match, he had that really cool leg drop across the back of the head on the apron. So I'm looking forward to that match. He had that weird punch off after she got presented with the trophy. I'm hoping this is a lot like when Thunder Rosa fought Shida, and that she was coming in from outside, but they still put on a match of the night candidate. So I'm looking forward to it, and I'm trying to be more minded about it because, like you said, we talked about the Forbidden Door, and they've got a relationship with Impact now, maybe New Japan. And also they've had that relationship going for ages with AAA and some other Japanese places. So the idea of I think it's this idea with AEW is that it doesn't matter where you're from. You don't even have to be officially under AEW contract. It's just that if you're one of the best wrestlers in the world, we'll bring you in and you'll be showcased. And I think that's what they're doing with Ryu here. And I think another win here for Shida, it kind of makes her seem so far like the most dominant AEW Women's Champion they've had so far. Because you look at she's beaten Nyla, Thunder Rosa, Penelope Ford to have this match. She had the match with that weird match with Abaddon. But I do, like I said, I think that Britt Baker is being set up to be the person after this to face her. Maybe Britt Baker can even attack her after the match. So yeah, is it much like the Brian Cage, much like the Sting match earlier on? This is easy to predict that Shida's probably going to win. But I'm hoping that, like again with the Thunder Rosa match, where it was obvious they still pull out the bag, and it'll be a hell of a match. But the match I am most looking forward to, because I want to see how they pull off the stipulation on a major pay-per-view, a major American pay-per-view, basically the number 2 company in America, or maybe number 1, depending on your feelings about WWE. But it's an exploding barbed wire death match between Jon Moxley and Kenny Omega for the AEW World Championship. Basically, the ropes are going to be taken away, replaced with barbed wire, which making contact on triggers a tiny explosion. And also the barbed wire itself hurts like a bitch. And there's also going to be a 30-second timer, and when that gets to the end, there's going to be a bit of a massive explosion. So I'm feeling that they'll move all the wrestlers that usually stand around the barricade, move them really high up to the upper decks of Daily Space, get out of the firing zone for this. But Grant, one of the last shows, I think, or if not the last show we did like in person, and Kelly, as part of this ESR before the pandemic, was the show I hosted that you were part of about deathmatch wrestling. And it's weird that we actually talked a bit about like exploding barbed wire, exploding death matches, like of Terry Funk and Captain Jack have been involved in them back in the day. How weird is it to see all these years later now a company like AEW is doing it for their world title?
I'm absolutely buzzing by it. Like as soon as I heard the stipulation, and then followed by Kenny tweeting the rules, and the hand-drawn diagram was just a little chef's kiss moment. Just here's the exploding bits on the outside as well. I was like, this is going to be fucking nuts. There's no other way to say it. It's going to be ridiculous. And I honestly, it's like if Moxley's like, I think he's just trying to get all this absolute insanity out of the way before he becomes a dad, because then he's going to have like Renee is going to be sitting there at home going, "Oh, for fuck's sake, John, not this. We told you not to do this anymore."
Yeah, it really continues their feud from last 2019, because remember they had that lights out match.
Mm-hmm. Which got
that lights out match. They had that like broken glass. They exposed the round. They had that big net of barbed wire, and I believe somebody grasped them up to that States Athletics Commission, got the bloody AEW fined for it because of the level of violence. And like, if some people had issues with the level of violence they had in that lights out match, Dave, I don't think this barbed wire death match is going to be for them, because it's going to be taken up to a whole new level.
Way they could get away with this match full of fans, because the health and safety aspect would be far too dangerous to do it. So why not capitalize on such an insane match when you're allowed minimum people in the arena at one time? And I said before, and I think it was the week before Central, that I had no idea what the concept of this match entailed. But I had to thank Kenny Omega for going through a run through of the rules and providing that brilliant sketch drawing of what it's going to look like. It definitely cleared things up a bit more. But it does take me back to the lights out match. You know, the sheer amount of carnage they inflicted on each other ends up getting complained to by the sports authorities. And yeah, this is going to throw all that out the window, and they're just going to go ham, I reckon. And even though this match does seem to favor Moxley, I think this is setting him up to write him off in some way. And I think Kenny Omega is going to retain the title as a result.
Yeah, I mean, you look at that sketch, such a well done sketch. You imagine Kenny did that, took it up to Don Cal to show me done, and goes, "Thank you. I'm going to put it right here, right on the refrigerator, so we can look at it every day." And like, it showed them in the workshop putting something together for the match, and Cal described they were putting together the Moxley like Eliminator or something like that they described it as. But what's interesting is that Tony Khan said this feud isn't over after this. But you gotta think this would be, you think this was the ultimate way to write John Moxley off for a while. I don't know how you come back from losing to Kenny Omega by nearly being blown to bits, and then you come back and continue the feud, because I do think Kenny needs a couple of new challenges, something like a Pac or Hangman Page or something like that, or somebody completely new. And the main event too has not had that much of a shot, because as much as I like Moxley, I think this is the perfect time to write him out, get him moved from TV, let us miss him a little bit, maybe have him go to Japan after his kid's been born for a bit, and then come back, and we'll be excited to see what he does next. I mean, me and you have talked about maybe this is the opportunity for him to come to be part of Japan a little bit more as the US champion if he's written out with this match.
Yeah, I think it's going to tie in nicely with the timing of the New Japan Cup USA. And, you know, I know that like both companies, they really don't want their champions to be losing in other places. So keep the belt away from Moxley so it's more freedom when he goes to New Japan. Whatever happens, this match it's bigged up. There's huge expectations about it, and I'm expecting sheer brutality. And I am going to be loving it. I'm staying up live to watch it tonight. I cannot wait.
Yeah, if you're a fan of the deathmatch style of wrestling that I mentioned we did that show about, then you're going to love this match. I do agree with Dave that you couldn't do this in a arena with fans, because I think that's why they're doing it. They're taking advantage of the unique stipulations they can do with the limited capacity that they have. Because like, if they had fans in the building, they would have to have done this as separately as like a cinematic match. They wouldn't do that for like their world title match when they've got an arena full of fans who have paid. So yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I think we can all agree Kenny Omega is retaining. But I think top to bottom, AEW Revolution is looking like a stacked card, as we said. I'll go around you quickly and let me know what match are you most looking forward to at Revolution before we sign off. Dave?
Aside from the barbed wire death match, I'm actually looking forward to the ladder match the most.
Interesting. Grant?
The barbed wire death match is by far my biggest hope and dream come true ever in a major pay-per-view. So that and the tag team battle royal actually has my interest a lot because of what could come out of
I think, yeah, we're all agreed that the barbed wire death match is the one we're most looking forward to, just for how mental it could be. I think, yeah, close second is the ladder match. I enjoy a good multi-man ladder match. I wouldn't say the Sting match is one I'm most looking forward to. I'm saying I'm morbidly curious to see how it looks, to see how good Sting looks in a match. I'm cautiously optimistic. I'll say it like that. Cautiously optimistic. But that is all the time we have. We went nearly an hour, and I didn't think we'd be able to keep it under an hour, given that we had such a stacked card. But again, we had certain matches that we really didn't care that much about, aka Miro and Saban versus Best Friends. But we thank you for joining us. Tune in on Facebook or YouTube, wherever you tuned in for this, for another pay-per-view preview. We're going to be back for Fastlane in a couple of weeks. Ross and David will be back for then, hopefully. And we hope you are part of our Facebook community page to keep up with everything going on and interact with us about stuff with shows coming out. And we hope you're subscribed to us on all good Android podcast sites, that'll be Anchor, Spotify, or iTunes. We've got feature shows coming out every Tuesday. We have one coming out about Edge next week, then the one next following week about the final year of WCW, and then the next few weeks, all sorts of shows related into WrestleMania as we're closely approaching the biggest show of the year. We've got Central that Dave mentioned every Thursday, talking about all the latest news and everything else that's going on in the world of wrestling. We're sure next week on Central will be a lot to talk about with what happened in the fallout of AEW Revolution. Me and Grant, almost on a monthly basis, we talk about everything going on in New Japan. I think this is going to be one of those months where we have two shows. We just released one, talk about everything that happened at the end of February with Castle Attack. We'll be back I think towards the end of March to recap the New Japan Cup that's currently going on. Me and Dave, we do Saturday Draft Live with Jack Graham, episode yesterday, and we're continuing the road on season 8, the new tag team season. A lot of interesting things happened. We talked yesterday about who stands to gain the most for their team going into AEW Revolution. And like I said, tune into our social at SuperHG on Twitter and Instagram. Keep up with when we do things like this that we'll be doing before every pay-per-view. But Grant, I want to thank you for coming in and joining us for the special edition.
It's been a pleasure. Really enjoyed myself. It's a shame that your brother couldn't be here with us. I'll slap him for it next time I see him.
Yes, it is very much a shame that Ross could definitely not be here with us today. Dave, thank you for joining us for another edition, and look forward to doing this again very soon.
Yep. Probably next one will be Fastlane, I imagine.
Yeah, very much. Fastlane first show on Peacock, and Ross will be back, as will David Campbell. But until next time, I've been Scott McLeod, your host for this edition. I look forward to Ross coming back because I was shitting myself doing hosting, so I like when he gets to do all the work and I can just sit here and give my random opinions. But until next time, everybody, thank you for tuning in and enjoy Revolution.